On today's show, we wrap up our list of Sens off-season targets with some forwards.
And we continue with a 2024 NHL Draft prospect profiles. Could the Sens get the Nodak Sens pipeline going again?
Yes, please. We'll profile 3 players and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only podcast covering the Sens every single day. You can follow us on social media at Sens Central on Twitter and lockedon.senators on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Today is Friday, June 7th, and Pilsy, we've talked goaltending. We've talked defense, and those are the 2 biggest areas of need. But the forwards, they're still going to have to mix and match and try to find the chemistry to allow them more consistency.
Yeah, although forwards definitely is the least concerning part of this team, there is some concerns, and there's probably going to be some movement going on because you look at a lot of different factors. Josh Norris's injury concerns, Shane Pinto not signed, rumors that the Ottawa Senators, Steve Staios, is looking to shop Matthew Joseph. There's lots of different moving parts on forward as well, and there's lots of great options out there.
And there's no surprise that we've focused in on veteran forwards, on guys who have been around the league, have a ton of experience, and guys who aren't afraid to block shots, hit, do the little things that don't always show up on the score sheet at the end of the game, but that will make coaches happy and will add some wins at the end of the year. That's really winning hockey, is what we haven't necessarily seen enough of in Ottawa. So getting some guys with either deep playoff experience or experience playing in high-level games, those are things that we valued on our list of both free agents and trade targets.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every target we have, Ross, was in the playoffs this postseason. So you want that experience, you want some goal scoring, you want some physicality, you want leadership, and I think we've got a good mix of all those things with our list.
Let's start with the free agent list. You and I have different top targets. Who's yours and why?
My top target is Tyler Toffoli. This is a guy that scores goals at a great pace. He's got one of the best shots in the league. He's one of those guys where just get the puck on his stick in the O-zone and he can get you a quick goal because his shot is so good. I would love to see him play the left side of the Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux line, and he's a right shot, so you get that kind of sniper position, right shot on the left side. And this is a guy that I wanted the Ottawa Senators to target when he was a free agent years ago. Now they went with Evgeny Dadonov instead, which at the time I didn't mind. But now I think Tyler Toffoli would be a great fit for this team. And Ross, he's a guy that he needs to play in every single Canadian city. He's almost done it all. So why not come to the nation's capital?
It would be next on his stop that's seen him go through in no particular order, Calgary, Vancouver, Ottawa Junior with the 67s, and Montreal as well.
And Winnipeg.
And he's from Toronto. So there you have it. He's really making the tour.
Captain Canada.
And hey, he was Captain Canada at the World Championships, not this year, but last. And they won gold. So bring him home. Yeah, it seemed like Ottawa just missed out on him when he went to Montreal, and then the Sens ultimately went with Evgeny Dadonov, and we know how that went. Actually, I'm not even calling him Dadonov. He's Dadonov to me. That first-round pick, I'm not changing anything. So with that all said, look, the Senators at wing, important for me. They need a centerman as well. How about a guy who can do both? My top target is Chandler Stevenson, 2023 Stanley Cup champion with the Vegas Golden Knights, Swiss Army knife player who was in a bottom 6, even a 4th-line role with Washington when they won the Stanley Cup in 2018. And then he goes, look at me now. I've got offensive upside. He finds a home in Vegas, and he is going to get a steady increase, I would imagine, in terms of what he was getting paid. As I'm looking right now, 2.75 was on his last contract, and it was a deal that he signed for 4 years. So he's due for a raise. So how Ottawa's able to fit him in, that's a conversation that needs to be had about moving money out. But man, if they could get Chandler Stevenson, 2-time Cup champ, just the type of guy who I think would add a lot of credibility, add a lot of speed, and add a versatile player who can help out in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Chandler Stevenson too. I'm just concerned about what the price tag is going to be, but I think Vegas is concerned about that price tag too, Ross. We were looking at their cap friendly. They got no flexibility cap wise, and they have a lot
did
of
it to
players that they need to sign.
themselves. They did it to
I don't
themselves.
feel sorry for them. I don't feel sorry for them at all. But yeah, I would say those are the top 2 UFA targets for the Ottawa Senators.
In a depth role, we were looking at Dakota Joshua, who deserves a raise from what he was making in Vancouver. He's a big, mean, bottom 6 grinder who can play with skilled players as well. I would like Dakota Joshua as a Senator for sure. Anthony Duclair, a reunion there. He would add speed and skill. He found a home, though, in Tampa. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to make that work. He's had his bags packed for like 6 years now. Duclair's played even like 10. He's played on so many teams. He's collecting jerseys. I think he would like to probably settle down and get a 3-4 year deal. Like Tampa's done that with guys, with Nick Paul, with Brandon Hagel, with they want that cost certainty. So I wouldn't be surprised if Duclair finds a home in Tampa. Jake DeBrusk rescinded his trade request a couple of years ago when Bruce Cassidy left. So I don't think he's as much of an option. But again, Boston center is their priority. Jake DeBrusk, though, awesome player. Would love to have him pending UFA. The others, Danton Heinen, will be going to UFA. He would be an interesting guy to add some speed. And Stefan Nason, we've been talking about him in the playoffs too, man. He scored some big goals in some big games for Carolina. So I like our list. I like the way we've structured it, but we're probably missing some guys too. So if you have anybody who you think needs to be on this list, just let us know in the comments below, Pillsy. What do you think about the rest of our list here? How would you kind of power rank either realism of these guys or how effective they would be in the Senators organization?
Ross, I love Dakota Joshua. Like that is the type of hockey player that I want playing on my team. He's able to pick up points. I believe he had 18 goals. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, 18 goals, 14 assists, 32 points. And Ross, he plays a physical game too. He was top 10 in the league in hits. He had 244 hits last season. Now he's got some playoff experience. I would love him as a third line guy for the Sens.
Okay, well, let's look at the trade market now. And Nikolai Ehlers not interested in a contract extension in Winnipeg, according to David Pagnotta. They've kind of used him in a lesser role than I think maybe he and the fans here would have expected, but he could fetch something good on the open market if there's a contract extension. We already talked about a potential 1-for-1 swap with Jacob Chychrun. I don't know how realistic that is. It'd be 2 players who are kicking 1 year away from free agency. So from that standpoint, a trade's a trade. It could make sense, but we've also put a name on here I think would catch Sens fans' attention. Before we get to that name, Arthur Kaliev, long rumored to be on the trade block, healthy scratch at times in the playoffs. Yeah. Kind of an eclectic player. Would that be a fair way to say it? Or like, a player that you have to be in the perfect situation to get the most out of. But when you have him in that spot, a little bit Dominic Kubalik-ish, though. I will say I'm getting a bit of Kubalik vibes from Kaliev, which means he could either score 20 or 30, or he could be my least favorite player within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think he would be a cheap acquisition. I think Rob Blake has made it very clear he's no interest in Kaliev, so I think he'd get him for cheap. He'd be a good second power play sniper type of guy. And Ross, where did he play junior? The Hamilton Bulldogs. So Steve Stais and Michael Anlauer would know him well.
So they have a rapport for sure. JG Pajot, Pillsy, 2 years left, $5 million AAV. You cannot get him at that price tag. But if there is retention involved, I'm just looking at the style player the Sens are identifying that they need. Character guys. I'm not saying it would be an expensive maneuver. I would say this is more of a look, if Josh Norris gets hurt again, you've got a top 9 center. You've got to me, Pajot's been playing too high in the lineup the last couple of years, and it's kind of caught up to him. Third line center for Pageau, a bit of fourth line center even, and at $2.5 million, if you get a 50% retention, I just think that if the Islanders are looking to move on, I think that could be an interesting player to target for cheap, that we know that Pageau comes to play in big games. He'll give you everything he has every single shift, and defensively responsible. Like, he's not even that he's 30. He's not, I feel like because he made his debut at 20s, hat trick, playoffs, Habs, not a big deal. Guy is a complete stud. Chicken parm. I'd welcome Pageau back for the right price in the right role as well.
Look, I love JG Pageau, but I'm not sure he's a fit here just because we got too many centermen here. And I know there's the Norris factor, but I don't know how.
I think they're going to get a veteran centerman. I do think they're going to get one this summer.
Yeah. I mean, with Norris, you might need one, but I don't know.
Pageau would immediately be the Sens' second best faceoff guy after Giroux.
Yeah.
His career, he's at 54%. That was an area of need for the Senators, I thought, last year, for not a number one need, but defensively, obviously, would be. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious if Pageau himself has played more playoff games than the Sens' entire roster combined.
I mean, take out Claude Giroux in that
scenario, you'd have to take out Giroux.
But yeah, it's not a bad point, Ross. And I think there would be no Sens fans that would be upset with Pageau coming back.
We were robbed of seeing Pageau in the 2D Sens jersey. So I'm not advocating for it. He's not my number one target. But if other moves fall into place, be cool to bring back 44 Jean-Gabriel Pageau. All right, let us know in the comments what you think of our list here. You can get mad at it or co-sign whether you'd like to get Chandler Stevenson or Tyler Toffoli in free agency, or maybe one of our more realistic targets below, from Dakota Joshua down to Danton Heinen. You want to see that full list? Go check us out on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the show. It does go a long way to help us out. Pilsy, another weekend, which means we are getting ever so close to the NHL draft. 3 weeks away from the Sphere in Las Vegas. And we got plenty more profiles to come, including, look, you're so hesitant to give 5 stars for any prospect. I'm going to say it right now. EJ Emery is a 6-star Senator, okay? 6 stars. This guy needs to be wearing red, black, and white when he leaves the draft floor.
Hey, I love EJ Emery, and you're about to hear how much I love him. And all 3 of these players we're about to cover would be great choices for the Sens, in my opinion.
Coming up next, you're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Policy Genius. Guys, Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. You want to save time, you want to save money, you want to provide your family with a financial safety net? Head to Policy Genius. You can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius is going to help you compare all your options from the best companies with their team of licensed experts that are going to make it easy. You can find quotes from all of the best insurers in just a few clicks and find the option that best suits you. Look, sometimes your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs, and even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Policy Genius is going to give you an unbiased report from their team. They don't have any incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust that they're going to lead you in the right direction. Don't just take my word for it. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews on Google. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOn.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub, the neighborhood pub in the heart of the Glebe. Go visit them at 779 Bank Street and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. Whether you're going there for a smash burger or a plate of wings, make sure to have a great time when you're at the GLEBE Central Pub. It's easy to do because the GLEBE Central Pub hosts plenty of events, whether it's open mic night, whether it's trivia night. There's always something going on at the Glebe Central Pub. Like every Saturday night, live music, Allaire and Dunn this Saturday, 9 to midnight, Victor Nezrella next weekend. It's always Saturday night live music at the GCP, where the vibes are free. Get your wine, whiskey, drought, cocktails, spirit, nails, a place to share with friends and neighbors. The Glebe Central Pub is right in the heart of the Glebe, and I love hanging out at the Glebe Central Pub. I'm a big darts guy when it comes to the bar, and I love getting a bullseye at the Glebe Central Pub. You can too. Go enjoy yourself at the Glebe Central Pub, 779 Bank Street, and let them know your friends at LOSP sent you. All right. A reminder, you can follow the show on social media at Sens Central. Also on Instagram, lockedon.senators. We are doing 80 prospect profiles as we get closer and closer to the National Hockey League draft in Vegas. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That subscription especially helpful for our draft content boots on the ground. All right, back to our 2024 NHL Draft Rankings, and coming in at number 23 from the USN TDP, it's defenseman EJ Emery.
Ross, we've been waiting for this one for a while. This is a player that both of us have targeted. Maybe it's time to get the Nodak Sens pipeline going again, and I can't think of a better player to do that with than EJ Emery, a big, physical, shut-down, right-hand shot defenseman coming from the USN TDP. In 61 games last season, he had 0 goals. That's okay, though. That's okay. 16 assists. Good for 16 points. Math guy here. Look at the plus minus, Ross, plus 34. That's about Utah heat temperatures right there. That's what you like to see. And the PIM's up at 61. And a defenseman, a shut-down defensive defenseman that is going to Nodak to be under the tutelage of Brad Berry, arguably one of the best defensive coaches in the college circuit. That's music to Sens fans' ears.
It seems like a perfect defensive defenseman, exactly what the Sens need. I'm going to try to leave my North Dakota bias aside here, but he's an athlete. That's first and foremost when you read about EJ Emery, and it's in the bloodlines. His dad was a CFL player who actually played for the Ottawa Rough Riders back in the day. Super cool connection there. So EJ, his dad's American, I think that EJ was born in Compton as well, but he was raised in BC, Surrey. So he grew up in British Columbia, big Canucks guy, and then travels to Ann Arbor to take part in the program. There, he gets paired with Cole Hudson. We've already done a prospect profile on him. Just the dazzling offensive defenseman, just like his older brother Lane. So the yin-yang combination here, and EJ Emery to me is the way higher floor than Cole Hudson. And I'm here to fight the battle that EJ Emery has offensive upside. Is it a tough sell for a guy with 0 goals?
Not all only season, throughout all competitions.
Exactly. But what he can do with his skating and physicality and that first pass with the experience of playing with a highly talented offensive defenseman, he just screams to me second piece. Like a team that has an early pick, the Ottawa Senators, take that high-end offensive skill if you can. And if EJ Emery was the pick at 25, the Senators should be getting right back on the plane to Ottawa. They've done their work at the draft. Nothing more than that. He's just the perfect fit for what Ottawa, I think, should be trying to build on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, when you can find a player in this spot in the draft with this much size, this shutdown capability that EJ Emery has, you got to jump on that opportunity, especially for the Ottawa Senators. EP in their draft guide awarded him the 3rd best neutral zone defender and 4th best shutdown D. And Ross, what I love about watching EJ Emery and reading prospect reports on him and scouts reports on him is his ability to drive attackers wide and use his stick efficiently, just like we used to see Jacob Chychrun do. Ross, go back to us in Cabo when we were learning that Jacob Chychrun was coming over. And what was the number one thing we talked about? His ability to have good gap control and effectively use that stick to keep guys wide and shut plays down. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, look at the picture of EJ Emery here. It looks like he's got a fishing pole for a stick. Like, this guy has range. He's going to be able to stop and shut down plays before they even get started. And that's exactly the type of player the Ottawa Senators need.
EJ Emery in the Elite Prospects Draft Guide was ranked the third best neutral zone defender behind Anton Siliev and Charlie Elick. The fourth best shutdown defenseman, Ben Danford, sneaking in third. The other two aforementioned, 1-2 again. And then you just see kind of the consistency in his write-up where he can just, like, he screams to me that Mark Mathot type that we always talk about that every team needs, that right shot as well. So think Artem Zub. If you can have, Zub as a solid veteran, and then in 3 years' time, EJ Emery's coming up and kind of, easing into that same role, I think it's going to take some time. I think he's at least a 2, maybe even a 3-year guy in the NCAA, but the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. Much like we liked Will Skahan in a different sense, in a bit of a later play, I'm seeing that, but with more offensive upside and a way better skater. So this would be a top pick. He's going to be higher on my list than 23. He's going to be in the mid-teens, I think, when it's all said and done. You've heard me wax poetically. And lastly, because I did say I wanted to fight the battle for him being an offensive defenseman, it finally started to show at the World Under-18s, where they were the talk of the tournament, that deep pair with Hudson. And he was plus 15 in 7 games, but also contributed 6 points. And he does so many right things that lead to points. Eventually, you got to believe they're going to come. He's not going to be a 30, 40-point guy, Pilsy, but I do think that he's a guy who has more offensive gifts than the production would show.
I'm not with you on the offense, Ross.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. But when you're this elite of a shutdown defender, I don't care if he scores 0 goals in his NHL career, Ross, because this guy just completely shuts it down with his ability to stop opponents from getting into the offensive zone. We talked about it. EP has him ranked as the 3rd best neutral zone defender. So it's so tough for teams just to get inside the blue line when he's on the ice. I really liked EP's. They had one scout compare him to Keandre Miller. I really think that that's a really nice player comparable. Ross, you'll remember from that draft when Keandre Miller was in the Ottawa Senators kind of range there.
Well,
but
Sens traded back that pick. That pick was Keandre Miller.
Exactly. You and I were sitting there being like, please let the Ottawa Senators have a chance to get Miller. We loved everything that Keandre Miller brought to the table. And I'll speak for myself. I still like everything Miller has brought to the table. And if EJ Emery can turn into that type of player, I think any team,
too.
Exactly, as a right shot, I think any team would love to be able to get the opportunity to step up to the draft table and draft him. He's a smooth skater, which allows him to defend even better. So if you're a team looking to draft a right-hand shutdown defenseman, so far, Ross, there's only one player that I would take ahead of EJ Emery.
Give me a 5 stars.
Ross, I think it's not going to be surprising at all from the way we've talked about him. I've got EJ Emery at 4.5 stars here.
Oh, my goodness. You're not even going to have a single 5-star guy, are you?
Well, let's wait till we're on what's Emery here, number 23. We got a lot more players to cover here. And I mentioned it. I love EJ Emery, but if the Ottawa Senators had a chance to take Charlie Elick, I'm taking Charlie Elick ahead of EJ Emery.
Really? Not me.
Ross, what were what were Emery's top awarded aspects for EP?
Yeah.
Remind me.
Yeah. We went through this. Neutral zone defending and in zone defending.
He was Emery is third or fourth in neutral zone? No, third in neutral zone defending.
Yeah, and fourth shutdown.
Alec second.
Fourth in shutdown. Or Alec?
Alec. Emery is fourth shutdown defenseman. Alec is second. And Emery is not one of their top hardest hitters. Alec is number 5 in hardest hitter. And Alec, I don't need to convince people as much as you're trying to convince people that he does have offensive upside. So that's where, and then you got a right-hand shot defenseman, and I believe Alec is even bigger than EJ Emery. So I think all of those provide the reason to have him as a slight edge, but this is EJ Emery's prospect profile. I'm not trying to downplay him. I'm just saying if I had the chance, both those guys available at the draft table, I know where I'm going.
Look for EJ Emery to go easily into night 1 of the NHL draft, a first-round talent, no doubt, who hopefully ends up in the nation's capital. All right, more draft profiles on the other side, including another note accent already. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Go check out Game Time today and go get your tickets to the NBA or NHL finals. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer last minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can browse through the app. You can discuss how amazing it is getting no added fees. Added fees are the worst part of buying tickets. You think you got it for $100? Bang, it's $140. What happened? There goes all my concession coins. Now I can save that at Game Time. I always use the Game Time app, and because you're a listener of Locked On Senators, you are entitled to $20 off your first ticket purchase. Just use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but go check out Game Time today and get last-minute tickets. Get flash deals, zone deals, views from your seat, and more. The lowest price guarantee, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. A reminder, you can follow the show on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. Be a friend, tell a friend, subscribe to LOSP on YouTube. All right, coming in at number 22 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, we're going to Pilsy's neck of the woods from the Guelph Storm. It's Jett Luchanko.
Ross, I'm going to do my best not to have my Guelph Storm bias on, but you don't even need much of a bias to like Jett Luchanko here, as he's very consistently and highly rated from all of our entities, Ross. We'll get to that in a second when we pop that up. But with the Guelph Storm, in 68 games, he had 20 goals, 54 assists, good for 74 points. He had 3 assists in 4 playoff games. And then in the U18s with Team Canada, he had 7 points in 7 U18 games. So you can see this is a player that's able to put up points consistently.
You can see it on the production, but don't look away when he's on the ice, because you blink and you miss him. He's the fastest guy easily every time he's on the ice, it seems, in the OHL. You watch the video, he's blowing past defenders. He's hit on the forecheck. To me, he's just playing the game at a higher speed than 99% of his competition. And with that, he sets the pace for his own teammates as well. And he just he's the heartbeat of any line he's on, it feels like. So I'm a big fan of Jett Luchanko. I like what he brings to the game. Got to talk about the fact that he's a bit undersized, but he makes up for it in terms of his motor and how quick he is to get onto forecheck. And who knows, could still be growing too. An August birthday, one of the youngest kids in the NHL draft this year. So I think for me, if he's the pick for the Senators at 25, I'm pretty happy with that because he does, to me, have high upside and maybe more of a playmaker than a shooter, but I like the qualities that he brings and as a skater and as a guy with some upside as well. So Jett Luchanko comes in at number 18 on Chris Peters' rankings, higher than anybody else. Corey Pronman at 19, Craig Button at 20, Bob McKenzie at 26, McKean's at 21, and then Elite Prospects actually is the lowest on him at 34, despite naming him the third best straight line skater in the draft and the fifth best motor, as well as the fifth best two-way forward.
Yeah, now we know EP values skating, and being a top end straight line skater doesn't necessarily mean you're a fully well-rounded skater. You know, it's all about your stride, your edges, your pivots, things like that too, that maybe EP isn't so high on him. But the speed you certainly can't deny. And you mentioned it, the playmaking. He's an elite playmaker that can set his teammates up. The highlights I was watching, Ross, you got stretch passes, you got hitting guys backdoor for tap-ins, you got perfect passes for guys in the slot right on their tape so they can one time it. Any way his teammates or line mates want to pass, Luchanko's going to find a way to get it to them. And it's that playmaking ability that has scouts and prospects, analysts so excited about him. But one thing, Ross, is you look at a guy that has 74 points in 68 games and you see that dash 13. Now we know plus minus isn't everything. Got a precursor that stat with that every single time. But I did a little digging, Ross, not that much digging, but a little bit of digging. And I kind of found out why. 33 of his 74 points came on the power play. And he had 30 power play assists, like 30 power play assists in 68 games. This guy's able to get it done on the man advantage. Now, I'm not saying that's a total knock on him, but it is something to look at, that maybe the 5-on-5 play isn't as elite as it looks when you just see 74 points in 68 games. But Ross, what I like about Luchanko is you see him putting up those big points and you might think, okay, this guy's slacking on defense. Not the case. He's a great two-way player, and he uses that speed to play effectively on defense too, and he keeps the tempo going. If you want to talk about a player with pace, Luchanko's your guy.
Oh, Luchanko led his team in scoring by 3 points, and other than Braden Bowman, who was right behind him, those two were like 20 points clear of the next guy. And if you read into the season for the Guelph Storm, they didn't realize that Poitras was going to make the Boston Bruins. So all of a sudden, Luchanko is getting an opportunity to be the number one center. And EP actually said they're comparable prospects, Poitras and Luchanko.
Yeah, I see it.
I mean, yeah, and I don't think Luchanko is going to be jumping in 2 years and playing NHL games necessarily, but he's a really nice prospect, and I think he could be next year among the league leaders in the OHL with scoring. He's that talented to me, and if we can get the production up at 5-on-5 to what it is on the power play, I think there's a real nice prospect in here.
Yeah, definitely. And Ross, you're not the only one. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of scouts that are high on him. Like Peter's having him at 18. That definitely is big. And you got Bob at 26. So he's going to be a first rounder for sure. I think he's going to be kind of a late first rounder, somewhere in the Sens range. Like at 25, this is a good pick for the Ottawa Senators. I think he projects to be a high-end third-line center that can play up in the lineup in short spurts, and I think he's going to become kind of an offensive penalty killer as well. You know, one of those guys that you can rely on him for his defensive instincts, but if there's lazy D-to-D passes from opponents' power plays, he's going to sneak up there and he's going to find a way to get a breakaway. Now, only 20 goals in 68 games. You would like to see a little bit more of a goal-scoring talent for Luchanko, but I think he was just in such a position to set up his teammates that the playmaking was shining a lot more, and I think we're going to see those goals bump up a bunch next season.
August birthday as well. So much room to grow. He had a great U18s with 7 points in 7 games. Some scouts calling him an unsung hero in the tournament. Now, a Western Conference scout told Elite Prospects that he's one of his favorites in the draft, just combining the smarts, the energy, and the motor, and playing the right way with some deceptive skill and hockey sense. Just seems like a complete player. And we know that the Sens have strong ties to the Ontario Hockey League, so they've seen a lot of Jett Luchanko. Pilsy, your Sens stars for Jett Luchanko.
So I've got Jett Luchanko at 3.5 stars, Ross. I like the player here, but I just think you're looking for, if he's going to be the first forward selected with the Ottawa Senators, and possibly, in my mind, I have the Senators selecting 2 defensemen and 1 forward with the top 3 picks. So if he's going to be your only forward in the first 2 rounds, I'd like to see someone with a little bit more offensive upside. I think there's some players that could be a better fit here, but if your team just drafted Jett Luchanko, I think you're going to be very pleased with him. And like you're saying with his teammate Matthew Poitras, it's probably not too crazy if a contending team with a shallow prospect pool gets him, and they're like, hey, we want a 2-way centerman that we can trust to play in our bottom 6. It wouldn't be that crazy for him to be one of those players that gets to the NHL quicker than some of his peers.
Okay, that's Jett Luchanko coming in at number 22 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. For more, go check us out on YouTube, where you can find 80 draft profiles. All right, coming in at number 21 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, from Muskegon in the USHL, it's Quebecois Sasha Boisvert, who's going to North Dakota in the fall.
Yep, another North Dakota product here, and he had one heck of a season in the USHL with the Muskegon Lumberjacks as an assistant captain. In 61 games, he put up 36 goals, 32 assists, good for 68 points. And the playoffs, maybe he wasn't able to get that same offensive pop. In 8 games, he had 3 assists. But Ross, you got to look at the 36 PIMs he had in the playoffs, including one game where he had 17 PIMs and another where he had 15. This guy is putting up points and dropping the gloves if need be. He's scrapping in the playoffs in the USHL. You don't see that a lot for players with over 35 goals.
Seems like a bit of a project. Like, he's got all the tools, got the heart, the grit, like a power forward, but he's going to need a little bit of seasoning. And that's why obviously going to North Dakota is such a great call. He's going to be a 3-year guy there, I think. Pilsy, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I don't know who the last French player at Nodak's been. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but
yeah,
I love the development path. He just decided, look, this is what I want to do. He left the Quebec minor hockey system and took his talents to an area where he was able to go to Mount St. Charles Academy. And obviously it's a very prestigious prep school in the States, and put up a huge number of points there, and got to play with this guy, James Hagens, who we're going to be covering next year, the draft, probably a top 2 pick, maybe even the number 1 pick there. So imagine those two playing high school hockey together. Boisvert had 94 points in 56 games. Hagens at 115 in 54. Thanks for coming out. But yeah, an interesting path for Boisvert, but he's finding his way to Grand Forks, and I think he's going to do great there. He's 6'2", still has some room to bulk up, only 176 pounds, and he's very consistently ranked. Our entire range through 7 scouts is only 7 spots. Elite Prospect at 21, Peters at 22, Bob McKenzie at 22, Wheeler at 24, Button at 26, Pronman at 27, and McKean's at 28. Pilsy, I think he's going to be a late first-round pick.
Yeah, it would seem that way. And Ross, you mentioned that he's a Quebec native, obviously, with the name Boisvert. That's very clear. But QMJHL team, Scott Wheeler wrote in his write-up about him, even used a first-round draft pick on him. They were that convinced of his talent, and they were hoping that he was going to come home, and he goes to the USHL instead. So that gives you an idea of the hype around this kid, and it's definitely worth it. Now, let's get to some of what he does on the ice here. Now, he was playing
shooter.
Yeah, he was playing a lot with Matvei Gradin, though, and we covered him earlier, and he was setting him up a bunch. He's the type of player that can walk into the zone and rip one past the goalie. I love that. He's a dual threat pass shoot. I mean, you look, 36 goals, 32 assists, pretty much even there. And he's not just an offensive player, though. This guy is a power forward. We already talked about how he doesn't have any hesitation to throw down in the playoffs, but EP awarded him as the 5th best power forward in the draft. He hits hard. I think like this guy's going to be so much fun to watch in Nodak. And I think, Ross, the defensive side of his game is not really that great. So I think for him to go to a school like Nodak, have Brad Berry say, hey, Sasha, we know you can put up big points. Let's work on the other side of the puck here. And if he spends 2, maybe even 3 years there, I think that's going to go a long way for his development and for his ability to have a more well-rounded game when he's ready to transition to the pro leagues.
Call me crazy, but there could be some video sessions at North Dakota about how Shane Pinto looked when he was there. Just kind of a shoot first type mentality centerman that's good, that should be thriving at both ends of the ice, because that's going to be the difference between whether Sasha Boisvert ends up as like a better player than a Jett Luchanko or a Cole Baudouin or a Ryder Ritchie, Andrew Bashel, like that. This tier of player, it's like who's going to separate from that pack. And I think offensively, there's a ton of skill in Boisvert. It's about how he can round out his game. So I'm pretty high on him. Like if he's the pick at 25, I think that's a great pick for the Ottawa Senators. Scott Wheeler mentioning at the end of the season there was some top 15 chatter about him. That would be certainly a bit of a wrinkle, but look at the draft. Look at the draft rankings right there. It's very tight, very, very concise, and maybe a team jumps up to 16, 17 to get him, but I think this is right in the range for the Senators. So I'm hoping that you have him at least in that 3.5, 4-star range.
I'll get to that in a sec, Ross. But another thing that I found interesting is the Muskegon Lumberjacks GM. He was mentioning that Boisvert's off-ice work ethic is unmatched. Like this is a guy that is very focused, and obviously, like you would think, a Quebec native would jump at the chance to go to a QMJHL team. I'm not sure which team it was that used a pick on him, Ross, but you would think he would jump at the chance to go back and play in his home province. But he said, no, I think this is the better path for me, going to the USAHL, going to college, going to Nodak. And I think, like you mentioned, that it's a great decision. Like
Shakutami. Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's better.
Shakutami.
That's the right choice.
Boisvert.
Yeah, so I think that's the right choice for him. I think he's going to go somewhere in the 20s. I think the teens is maybe a little rich, Ross, but he has so many tools. I think he's going to be a good middle six player.
And he's a pest too. Like he's going to get under your skin.
Big time. And he's going to back it up too, especially if he can bulk up a little from that 176 pounds. I think he's going to be able to back up that type of game. Ross, I've got him at 4 stars here. I like Sasha Boisvert here. And if the Ottawa Senators decide, look, that he's the one forward we're going to take with our first 3 picks, I'd be down for that. And let's get the Nodak Sens train going again. EJ Emery, Boisvert, I would love to have that combo.
All right. Sasha Boisvert comes in at number 21 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. All right. Can you believe it? Another week of draft rankings in the book. Pilsy, we are down to the top 20.
I think we're going to find some 5-star guys coming here soon, Ross. Look, this is the thing, Ross. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on being a Pilsy's 5-star guy. Scouts are going to be talking about that. They're going to say, hey, we've got you. We've heard you're a 4.5-star guy for Pilsy. We're looking for those 5-star guys. They're coming up here. So, or at least I hope so. I haven't fully deep dived on all these players yet, but the talent that we've already covered is so impressive, and it's only going to get better. And there's a crop of elite defensemen still to cover here. So don't you worry, Ross. We'll get some 5-star guys going.
next week on Locked On Senators. Thanks so much for watching, listening, engaging with the show. We'll be on social media at Sens Central. The individual draft profiles will continue to trickle out throughout the weekend on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe, and be a friend and tell a friend. Talk to you soon. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.